No one inside the farmhouse could explain why the dogs stopped barking all at once. Something moved when no one was looking directly at them, their eyes catching the moonlight like polished glass. By the time of dawn, they had vanished, leaving behind the quiet impression that the encounter had only been an introduction. Welcome to Lost Delivery. Kentucky Farmhouse Siege. Late evening in the farmhouse kitchen, Billy Ray sits at the wooden table with Lucky, while Elmer talks about the farm under the low ceiling light, as Aileen washes dishes, and Vera listens to the radio near the hallway. The dogs outside suddenly stop barking, and the silence that follows feels so sudden and heavy that everyone slowly turns toward the windows. A few minutes later on the front porch, Lucky steps outside to check the yard, assuming an animal passed by, but he notices a small shape near the fence that seems to shift when he stops looking directly at it. He quietly calls Billy Ray to stand beside him, and together they stare into the dark field that now feels occupied, rather than empty. Moments later in the yard, Billy Ray sees the small figure clearly near the metal water pump, its eyes reflecting like polished glass, as it tilts its head in an unnatural way. He fires his shotgun believing it is a trespasser, and the figure falls on its knees before rising again, without any sign of injury. Immediately afterward, near the side of the house, Lonnie joins Billy Ray and they move cautiously toward the well, but the dry dirt beneath it shows no footprints where the figure had stood. Inside the living room, Vera hears a faint scraping sound slide across the roof, and Elmer quickly moves everyone lower and away from the windows. Late night in the living room, as Aileen keeps the family close to the floor, a thin hand-like shape slowly curls over the edge of the window frame, and the next second, Billy fires a shot through the glass, and the figure drops out of sight. Yet within seconds another identical shape appears near the barn, making it clear that the first had not been alone. Near midnight on the back porch, Billy and Lonnie step outside again and fire, when a small figure moves from the fence to the roofline, with speed that does not look natural. Instead of fleeing, the figures quietly reposition around the farmhouse, spreading out in a way that blocks the open path toward the truck, parked beside the shed. Shortly after midnight, inside the dark hallway, Vera hears shrill screeches travel from the roof, down toward the back wall, and Lucky reloads his gun as carefully as he can, despite his unsteady hands. Each time the men rush toward a door, the sound stops, as though the figures are aware of exactly where they are standing. Later in the yard, Billy cautiously steps beyond the porch light, to test whether the perimeter has shifted, and a small figure lowers itself silently from a tree branch behind him, without trying to touch him. Lonnie pulls him back inside, when he realizes the figure is not attacking, but calmly placing itself between the house and the road. Around 3 a.m. in the dim living room, the family remains gathered together, as small shapes pass slowly across the windows, their glowing eyes level with the glass as if observing, rather than attempting entry. In a lowered voice, Elmer admits that despite all the gunfire, the figures have never tried to break in, they have only surrounded the house, and stayed. Just before dawn, in the pale gray yard light, the screeches fade, and the small shapes beyond the fence begin to disappear one by one, leaving behind broken glass and scattered shotgun shells as the only signs of the night. When Billy finally steps onto the porch with the others behind him, the field looks unchanged, yet the careful way the figures had moved around the house makes it difficult to believe their presence had been random. By morning, they believed the figures had been trying to get inside, but looking back at the careful way the shapes had moved, blocked the road, and stopped whenever they were watched, it becomes clear the farmhouse had never been the target. The family had simply been kept in one place, observed until dawn, as if the night required witnesses, more than victims. If you had been inside that farmhouse, watching something surround your home without ever trying to enter, would you have stayed until dawn, or would you have stepped outside to see what it really wanted? Comment below the first answer that pops in your head.